Hey, welcome back to the garden, guys. This is a pruning video, but this is kind of a tree, trying to get the tree to do what we want, right? So this tree I'm trying to grow as an open center dwarf tree, and it's been very vigorous, which means it's just grown straight up, and it hasn't been putting on fruiting buds, and I haven't really got any fruit out of it until hopefully this year. And so I took some action last year, and I'll throw a photo in here hopefully. But what I ended up doing was I got some string and I tied it onto this branch. This branch was going straight up, and this branch was going straight up, and it had almost no growth activity in this area. So what I actually did is I got a jug, filled it with a little bit of water, tied a string. You actually see the remnants of the string on here. I don't know if you can see that, but I tied the string and I filled it with water until the branches bent down to about vertical or horizontal. And I used the appropriate amount of water to get that to happen. And then I left them tied for the second half of the growing season in that way. And what happened was the tree put on a huge amount of spurs. It put on all these fruiting spurs on these two branches that I bent over. And it also grew, and now I was able to take the buckets off. They were down about like that with the buckets on. And now of course they've rebounded a little bit, but they've not gone back to being vertical. So now I can start getting the shape I want on my tree. And also, I'm gonna get way more fruit this year than I would have, because none of these fruiting spurs were on here until I forcibly brought the branches down. Once you bring the branches down to something other than vertical, the tree somehow thinks it's time to put on fruit. I think it's because traditionally how this works is the branch grows very tall and eventually gets apples at the tip of the branch. And what that does is it bends the branch down like this as the apples get bigger and heavier. And then from then on, that branch is actually in that shape, and it starts to put on fruit further back in the branch. Now, I basically did that for it. The apples were not growing heavy enough and big enough and not enough of them to do it. So I got string and water and I jugs and I pulled them down. And I think it's a great tip. I think it's gonna work out really well. I'll shoot some more video on that later on, but I'm also gonna actually, see, I didn't do that to this one, and I can't decide if I want to completely remove it down here and leave these two plus this one as my main branches. I think I do. You know, this is probably going to get lots of fruit on it this year, but it's a hard choice. No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring it up here, and I'm going to hope that this branch comes off in this direction for this growing season. I'm going to get rid of this one heading back to the center. Let's see what that does. I'm going to tip that one back. And I don't love fruiting spurs that are heading down towards the ground. I'm going to eliminate a couple of those. One way to not have to thin your fruit quite as much is to actually thin the fruiting spurs. So if you have an ample amount of fruiting spurs where it's going to flower, you can just cut them off, every 1 out of every 6 inches or so, and that way you don't have to come through and thin like a million apples, because you can only have so many apples per, say, 6 to 8 inches of tree. So that's an idea.